Welcome to our quick connect session on annual reporting and balancing your year-end reconciliations. So the idea of this class is to be able to help users on reconciling bank statements and making sure that they are balanced to your financial system balances, comparing your reconciliation directory to your annual report, the cash and investment balance, and then also being able to run the Schedule 1 for annual reports and the Schedule 6 and the proof and other reports. And so we're going to start off doing a complete bank reconciliation. I'm going to be using I have a spreadsheet of what I did when I was working at another city, and so I'll show you the process that I went through, as well as some reconciliations. I randomly grabbed 3 different customers and prepared a reconciliations and showing how some things don't always work out the way that we hope that they will, and what we need to do to try to find what those problems are. And some of the issues that can happen in bank reconciliations is you have deposits in transit, especially those invoice cloud payments that get posted to the end of the year, but yet you don't see them for 4 or 5 days into the new year. And then other checks and withdrawals that are electronic transactions, interbank transactions. There's no actual cash transaction, but you need to make sure that if you're transferring dollars from one account to another, that when you're posting your reconciliations, that you're doing those transfers for both banks and not just on one bank, one side. And also, if you're making bank adjustments when you're doing your bank reconciliations, making sure that those get updated into the financial system. Those can throw your balances off, so you want to make sure that those are getting posted, making sure, if it's just you write a check for one amount and the bank clears it for another amount, and then the next you notify the bank and then they correct it. So those are a washout. So those kind of issues may not need to, but if there is a discrepancy and the bank never does correct that, then you'll definitely need to make a correction posting, so that way it gets into the system and that you're updated and balanced. And then we'll also be going through how to use the templates for your general journal entries for beginning and ending fund balances, then running the Schedule 1 report, the Schedule 6 report, and the proof, and the different schedules that we have in the Washington folder, and then performing the bank reconciliation. So we're going to start off with performing bank reconciliations. You want to make sure that you do this for all bank accounts that the city has, as well as including your petty cash revolving funds as well. So to start this off, when we go into reporting services, and we need to run I'm going to drag this over here. This is my test database, so it doesn't always have a lot of data that you're going to see in your own systems, but at least we can go through the step of the process. So we're going to come in here to our reconciliation directory. And I'm going to set this to the end of the year for December. And unfortunately, I don't have a bank statement to be able to do a reconciliation, so there's not going to be any history here. So if I'm just going to randomly grab someone from our cloud server, so that way we can just start off. So I'm just going to randomly grab somebody, and we're going to come in here and we're going to go to our financials reconciliation directory. And I'm going to set it. So we're already here at the end of the year. So you can see here that this particular entity did do a cash box reconciliation. It's just getting it into your reconciliation directory. You go in and create your bank recs, and you're going to do one for your cash balance and then the other bank accounts that you may have. So you want to create this. And once you have this here, you're going to export it out into Excel. And so I've already done some of these, so I just kind of want to show here my process. So if I have my reconciliation directory and I have all of them, I'm going to add up all my bank accounts. I'm going to add my deposits that are in transit, those that have not hit the bank that you've created in the month of December, less your outstanding check report gives you a new adjusted bank balance, and then you want to compare it to your cash and investment activity report. And then if you had other reconciling items that is not in financials, which you can see up here that there was one here of $1.20, so I want to include that. Have a new adjusted financial amount, and what is I am balanced. I have a $0 balance. And then I'll show you a couple of them that I was working with trying to figure out. This one, once I added up their bank balances, took out their outstanding checks and deposits in transit, got an adjusted bank balance, and then compared it to the cash and investment balance. And you can see that the financials is off considerably here by over $3 million. And then another one here is going through and listing all of the balances. Again, it's just taking the reconciliation directory report, less outstanding checks, and you're going to run the outstanding check report. And to do this, one of the things that is very important when you're running reports and you're doing your outstanding checks, of course, we're going to set it to the right month. Your outstanding date is always going to be the very first day of the next month. So in this case, it's going to be 01/01/2026 at midnight to get the true outstanding checks that are have not cleared the bank yet. And so then you're going to take your totals and enter that into your reconciliation directory here. And so we have our outstanding checks. There was no deposits in transit. Adding those up and comparing, this one here is balanced and there's no discrepancies here. So when you're running those reports, that's one thing to watch for. And also really quick, I want to mention in bank reconciliations, there's a new feature in our bank recs. And so if I do a new one, sorry, I'm dependent on how slow this is. When you're creating your bank recs here, if I wanted to create one for, say, December of 25, and we're going to select our institution and create that, your effective date here is important to have your correct dates. And if you are behind and you need to go back and create your statements, you want to make sure and get the dates that are used on the bank statement. So whatever their starting and ending date for the bank statement that you received, and then this default effective date, this is a new feature. You want to set this to the end of the month. I know some people, they reconcile every day, and some may not wait until they get the bank statement and then they'll reconcile, but you can select, I would usually recommend doing the last business day of the month. And then there's this store date here. That's very important to check that and save it. And so that way, when you go to create your bank statements, putting in your beginning balance that's on your bank statement and the ending balance, and you're going to attach anything that's outstanding over here, then you would attach them. And with having this store date, once you move an item over, it will stay with the effective date. This date here is used for those outstanding reports. So this is an important thing to keep in mind, that your effective date needs to be within those months of the reconciliation that you're working on. So that way, when you run that outstanding report, you're getting a true recollection of what truly is outstanding. So kind of coming back over here, just to kind of go back over, by running these, you want to make sure that these balance with your ending balances. So if I come here and I look at this reconciliation directory, and you can right tab to open in a new tab, and I want to run my cash and investment report. Oops, I want down different. And you run your cash and investment activity report for December. And this one is on December. So here is our adjusted bank balance and our cash and investment balance. We're pulling this for the total for your cash and your ending investments equals your amount. So then you're putting that in here as well with your reconciliation. You can see here that they are balanced. And that is, in the great world, that's what you want to achieve. And then also, besides just doing your bank reconciliations, you want to balance your funds. So by taking, and this was, I know, quite a few years ago, but if you have an audited bank balance that you got from your audit, that's a great place to start. So you're taking your beginning balances from your cash and investment report, adding your total revenues, subtracting your total expenditures, getting your ending fund balance, and then comparing that with your cash and investment balance report. And this is how you're going to know if you are truly balanced. By each fund, if you're off, then you need to be running some reports, your transaction activity reports, to be able to compare your revenues and your expenditures, and also getting your ending balance. You can see here, I plugged in those cash and investment balances. And I started from an audited year. And if you don't have an audited year, you can continue on, but if you find something's off, maybe going back, starting with that audited balance and working forward to see if there's any discrepancies there. And then also when you're working with your, once you're done auditing and reconciling your fund balances, then you will need to break out your balances, whether they are restricted, committed, assigned, or unassigned. So you have these balances to be able to enter into your general journal entries. So once you are fully reconciled and you are balanced, then you want to come in here to find your financials here into the general journal, which is under postings. You start at the beginning over here. So when we're here, we're going to go to our general journal, and we're coming in here to the general journal, and I have mine set to the default of March. So, and I kind of already started this a little bit. I only just came in here to create, but you would go here to new general journal, and we do have templates. And so you can manage templates by clicking on here and saying manage. And you can create your beginning year and ending year. So that way you have everything in here. So if we come in here to the ending fund balance, and I'm going to open this, and then you can add your accounts that you need to add in here for your balances. And so you're going to hit the add to add a new transaction. You're going to select here from the list, and you can expand this by clicking on the corners, expanding it open. You can also come up here and put in a filter, so that way you can select what you would like to select in here. And then you can add those other outlines that you need to have added if you haven't got them all in here. And then a debit. If it's a debit, you want a 1 here. And once you tab, it'll put in the amount or the description, excuse me. And then you're just, until you have all of them added, I just saved a couple here so we can do this together. And I know some of these are not all in here as they should be, but I've run out of time being able to get this to update. If it's a debit, it's a 1. If it's not going to be a debit and what like beginning fund balances, and those are all going to be credits. And I'll show you that here on the beginning balance. So if we open the beginning year, these are all credits. So then your debits are going to be zeros and you're going to enter 1. So if we add a new account number, and if I'm going too fast, please let me know. I'm trying not to go too fast. Or if you have any questions, you can always submit a chat question. I'll try to keep an eye on that. So I'm going to select my account numbers for my beginning balances. It's not a debit for beginning, it's a credit. So if I enter 0 and tab, it automatically put the 1 over here for the credit or this new account number that I just added. And I'll add one more, and then we'll go through the process of posting our ending balances. And then we're going to save and close. And then once we're done here, we can close this. So I'm going to just delete this so that way we can. So you come in here, you're brand new, you are wanting to use your December and the template. You want to select which template you want to use. So it's your year-end balance. And then when you click on use, it automatically creates and starts the posting. And then you can just put in like December 2025. And we want, of course, the end of the year. So you want to enter your balances and they are all down. You can, if you have more account numbers and you want to see all of your account numbers, you can drag this up. So that way you can see all of your account numbers. And it's really hard, I found, well, maybe this time it worked, being able to, in this window, be able to add, and then we're going to put in our ending fund balances over here. Me use my spreadsheet. So if you've created a spreadsheet that gives you your totals here, then you can put in your dollar amounts. You have them already broken down. If you kind of put together a spreadsheet similar to this, then you can add in those account numbers and dollar amounts in your general journal entry. And so we're just going to put in our amounts. And I can't remember all those numbers, but you can kind of just basically get the idea of what your, hopefully we can get this to stay in the right order. And let's just say we've got 50,000 over here. I know these aren't the right amounts and they're not staying in the account number order. So if you want to, you'll just have to keep clicking on that account number here to keep them in the right account number order, and then just enter your dollar amounts. And I know that that would be a nuisance, but just something to kind of pay attention while you are entering your dollars. So that is how you would enter your ending balances. And if you want to make notes, you could always put your notes in here, because notes down here in the transaction detail goes with your account numbers. And if you make a note up here in the transaction summary, then that goes with your transaction activity report. But this one will go with the account activity report. And you could put in a note, ending 2025 balance, whatever you find that you want to put in there. Once you're all done with your putting in your balances, you want to save and close or save, and then your total will be up here at the top. And you want to compare that with your cash an activity balance report, making sure that you've got all of the balances are in and they're correct. And then once you're done with your December, you can go ahead and do your beginning balances, and you do your beginning year balances, and then you're going to use, and I forgot to change this to January. So I wanted to show you this little blue mirror. Anytime you are in the system and you see this blue mirror, it's a great tool to be able to fix anything that you've posted incorrectly. So then I'm going to change my beginning year balance. I need this to be in January of 26. I'm going to change that. And you want to put in your new date. And when I hit save, it's going to remove from here because I'm on December. So I come up here to my fiscal year and I want to go into January of 26. And so you'll enter your beginning balances the same as what you used for your ending balances of the prior year. You want to enter all those in and they will show up as probably something that was 105. I can't remember what I put in here, but 396. And when you do enter credits, they are going to show up in brackets because they are a credit. But once you get done entering all of your amounts in, you want to make sure and verify up here in the amount that is balances with your other fund balances that you put in earlier for December. I didn't do that one. But once you get all done, compare, and then we're going to save close. I'm not going to go through everything. Um, Deb, I'm sorry if I'm going too fast. Anybody else? If I'm going too fast, please let me know. I'll try to slow down because I have a lot to cover in this hour segment here. But you can, this mirror here is a great tool to be able to change your fiscal periods and then if you don't want to see that again, then you use the blue and then it will remove that fiscal period. But then you enter in make sure you have all your account numbers. You can manage your templates here. And then when you want to use them, you use and it will automatically create those transactions for you. You'll always get this general journal must offset and equal 0. That is just a warning. It is not something that you'll have to make sure that it equals out to 0. It's just going to be credits for your beginning account, valid account number. I must have an account number that's not in here that is not valid, so I'm not sure which one it is. Since this is a test database, you shouldn't have that issue coming up when you're creating your own general journal entries or creating your own templates. I'm going to go ahead and save and close. Bear with me for a moment because apparently I cannot save this without knowing what account number is wrong. So I'm just going to save and close. I'm going to say no on saving this simply for the fact that there's some account number that I don't know where I have an error at. So I apologize for that. Does anybody have any questions on these general journal entries for, I don't know if I can get out of here. There we go. So after you do your reconciliations and you've reconciled your funds and you are balanced, then you want to do your journal entries. Those are the funds. And then also with the reconciliation directory, this is a worksheet. It's kind of similar to the old, kind of like the Schedule 6 that I was given this many years ago. but it's also just a good way to do the same thing as using the reconciliation directory. You're listing all of your bank accounts. And this is the one thing I want to stress. If you have other accounts that you are posting and receipting in dollars and you're just kind of wrapping it up into your original or your main bank account, it's really good to make sure that you list them all here when you're doing your reconciliations, whether it be in the system or not. You want to make sure to include all of them. You do not want to, it could end up being a warning flag for the auditors if you have bank accounts that you're not including in your reconciliation processes. And then I know some cities have courts, and years ago, the auditor's office said that you needed to include the court's transactions in the city's financials. And so this is why I have court in here for the city. I don't have their details, but I just would include all those transactions in the city's financials, and I would also include that in my reconciliations. So that way I would have that information in here as well. As you can see here, there was a payment that was underpaid back in the day that was off $1.20. So I include that in my other reconciling items. And this information is important to document here as well, because you're going to need to use that information when you are preparing the Schedule 6 and putting it in the parameters. And then I list all your outstanding checks plus those that are in the open period, and then getting a grand total and then comparing. This is the left side is the bank side, the right side is the city's financials, and making sure that they are balanced, that you are balanced in your financials as well as the bank statements. I have a question. Should LGIP always be reported as a bank account and not investment in like the water fund? If you have investments, like say you put money over to LGIP from your main checking account, you should be reconciling those as well. And they should be showing here on your bank recs. As you can see here, here is local government investment pool. And it is listed separately because when you record, and people do this a lot differently. Some people will have investments all within each other's funds. Some are still using the 999 fund, was like an excess cash. And so those just show as cash. And as you can see here, it's a negative cash. Here's the investment amount, but overall, what is their total? And this breaks down what's cash, what is total balances between investments and cash. And we are starting to see some entities that auditor's office are requesting them to eliminate the 999 fund and start posting to the different funds that have excess cash. So each fund would show how much they have in investments and not the 999 fund. And so if your auditors are telling you that you need to break that out, then you can always reach out to us and we would have to dissolve the 999 fund, and you would need to apply your investments amongst your funds that you have available for the excess cash to break that down. So hopefully I've answered that question on the LGIP so everyone understands that process. And let's see here. So once
Mary,
we've,
there's also a question. Sorry, Mary.
yes.
There's also a question. What is the purpose of the general journal if you haven't addressed it yet?
Oh, the
From Ken.
general journal entry is when you are posting these general journal entries. This allows those beginning and ending fund balances to actually be in and available to upload when you're running the Schedule 1, because the system does not record beginning and ending balances anywhere other than it's in the report. So once you know that you are balanced and reconciled, kind of coming back here to this, and doing your fund balance, making sure that you're balanced. And then you have a breakdown based off of the auditor's office. They have prescribed, is it restricted? Is it committed? Is it assigned or is it unassigned? And that the general fund is the only fund for those that are reporting on cash basis that can have an unassigned balance. All of your other funds are either needs to be assigned, committed, or restricted. Restricted is based off of the RCW. Committed and assigned can be based off of ordinance, resolutions, something that is set by the council to what type of balance is it? Is it committed, assigned, or restricted? And so once you have that determination, then you would post your general journal entries. So once you post those general journal entries and you go into the reporting services, so if I come into my reporting services, let's see. I'm going, as I don't have a lot of information here for my system, I'm going to just grab this one here. So if we come in here into our financials, in the Washington folder is where all of the reports are that you have. The paginated reports down here are all of the reports that are required to complete your Schedule 1. There's also an SOA file for the state auditor's office. It's kind of, I know it's backwards, but also in here in our reports, we have reports that we've set up in here that they're usually asking every year that they want. So you'll be able to find those reports that the auditor's office asks for in this SOA folder. But coming back here to our Schedule 1, once we've completed our general journal entries for our beginning and ending fund balances, you want to run your Schedule 1. In the new version of, I think it's 17.0, we have updated the format that the auditor's office wants for the headers. They've changed the titles this year. And so we have updated that. And so once you run your report, you're going to export it out into Excel so that you can upload it to the auditor's office. So once you order this, they do have specific formatting that they want. Everything pulls out in here, as you can see, as it is in general. The thing that we recommend is to coming in here, you can highlight columns A through E, coming up here and setting it to text. They want it all as text. And the amount column, they want it as a number. So change it from general to number. And they do not want commas. And so then it's all the correct format. And once you do this, then you can save it. And then you can upload this once you go and log into the SAO website to upload to your Schedule 1 to their website. Is there any questions on the Schedule 1? Okay, I did switch over to Q&A, so if you do have questions, please submit them in the Q&A as opposed to the chat so that I can't be on both tabs at once. So the Q&A is the better place for me to see your questions and hopefully get those answered for you. So we've done the Schedule 1. Once we've completed the Schedule 1, I'm going to minimize this. And then we're going to come back here to the Washington folder and we're going to run the Schedule 6. So the Schedule 6 is one that, again, like I was mentioning earlier, want to set the year. So we are running for 2025. You have to wait for it to load all of that data for that year. And then you want to make sure that the report year is correct. So if it's for 25, you want to make sure that 2025 is populating, and this one does. And then you're going to select your prior open period. So for 2025, it's going to be December 2024. And then you want to select your open period. And so looking at this, I would assume it's just this open period here, and then we're going to select the December of 25. Again, selecting your open period. And then the NSF check amounts, this amount here is, you don't need to enter the dollar amounts for all those NSF checks because it is included in your receipts if you were using the system correctly, using the reversal tool or doing a negative receipt and deposit for all those NSF checks. And then petty cash amount, what is your petty cash amount? I think I saw on this one that it was $300. You could put your dollar amount here. Other reconciling items in the balance is what did you have at the beginning of the year that you need to contribute for the beginning balance or the ending balance. And then if you had any other reconciling items that's not in the system that you need to enter in here, you want to put in those amounts for receipts or for disbursements. And then you run your report. Apologize, I know it takes a while for some of these reports because it's sorting a lot of the data. While it is doing that, I'm going to go ahead and right click on the Washington, and I want to create a link to a new tab so I can run other reports, and then we're going to go to the Schedule 6 proof. But looking at this down here, it is off in some of these. And there's one thing that I have been noticing also in this, all of those interbank transfers that you post in those bank adjustments, they are all going to come here into the bank in on the transfer banks transfers in. This you will need to pull out into Excel because when you upload to the state auditor's office, your interbank transfers in and interbank transfers out do need to equal the same. So with this one, it looks like it's transferring out of here. So we want to transfer out the 34,309.03. I'm assuming that's the way it would be, and then we're not going to have a zero here. And then I'm just going to add these up because we want to make sure that those totals are the same there. And the system does do the math as far as what is beginning balances. It does the math across in here. And then there's any deposits, your outstanding checks. And I put in the $300 on that, so it looks like it's already included in here, so we don't need to include that in here. And there's times it's like, do you know, does it need to be a positive amount or a negative amount? If you find that it is off because you put it in as a positive, and maybe we need to put it in as a negative 300 when we run our reports. So our beginning and ending balances are off, but yet there's a same exact amount off between other revenues and decreases. And so maybe there's, you know, what your activities better than I do. Do those need to be actually considered other reconciling items for disbursements and for receipts? Or is these totals as far as disbursements matching with your expenditure report, and is the receipts matching with the revenue report? And if there is not, then reach out to us. That is something have been working with a couple of different customers where the disbursements are not totaling correctly. And so we've sent those over to development. And if you're finding that to be an issue, please let us know so we can address that issue. And so when you run the Schedule 6 and you want to verify all of these amounts, so I'm going to come here into the Schedule 6 proof, and you're going to set your parameters again to what year you are running your open period. Sorry, my mouse goes too fast. Setting your open periods again, dragging it open. And also here you can choose, do you want to see detail or not detail? You can say yes. You can also, here's all of the different items that are here in the proof. I recommend running each of these by itself. So if you have your beginning bank balances, this is pulling from your January bank statement, reconciliation process. What is the beginning balance? And so this is your proof of all of the different accounts that you have. And this is where your beginning balance is. And then being able to compare that 15, 167, 144, 14. That's all the information that you have there. And then going back over here, and then you can compare your receipts. And if you choose to say no on the detail, there is a plus sign that you can click on that you can expand and drop down and see all of those receipts. And the longer it's going to take to run the reports, it's going to be dependent upon how much transactions that you have in the system. But you can also minimize by clicking on the little sign here and it will collapse it. And so looking at, oops, this here, we got 34,309.03 for the airport account. You can compare here that this does match. So that's the whole purpose of the Schedule 6. And you can compare for each account. And then you can also, if you find that when you're looking at these and something doesn't quite look right, another place that you can also run reports is, I'm going to have to drag this out of the way. So if we come over here into financials, we're going to run a new report. Another one that's really a good tool to use is your transaction activity report. And then you can also set it by the type of transaction that you would like to review further. And this is the one thing that we do recommend is you want to go ahead and select all. If you can do it by month, if you have a lot, you can come here to the transaction type. You can uncheck select all, and let's see, I want to look at all receipts. You can you can review by month or quarter, or you can decide to just, I want to review them all. And then you want to make sure that your cancel dates is also selected all. And then your transactions, you want to make sure and select all. And then view your report. And this will give you all of the information in here as well. It gives you a little bit more detail. But these are some of the things that you can do if you find that you're off, trying to figure out where you're off and trying to locate a transaction that doesn't look right. All transactions should have a number. That means that they've been issued for receipts, a deposit, or if you have a check, that there's also all invoices have a check. That is what's going to update your financial statement, your financial reports. You can post invoices all day long and they will not impact your um, financials if you don't issue that deposit. Another thing that does not impact cash is general journal entries for anything other than those beginning and ending balances. So if you're posting a general journal and you're wanting to make a barcode correction, that works just great as long as you are within the same fund. But as soon as you do a correction between the general fund and, say, the water fund, if you do a general journal entry, it will not update your cash balances. So keep that in mind. In that case, it's best to do a receipt and a deposit. You can do a $0 receipt, backing out one account number, putting it into the correct one, and then create your $0 deposit to update those financials. So keep that in mind if you have any corrections. It's always usually best to do either a receipt or an invoice. So when you're running your reports, again, doing your, we do our total here for the end. We got 16,881,67654. We want to compare it to the receipts here for the deposits, making sure those are balanced. And then if we were running the invoices, and also you have your interbank transfers in, this will show you all of the detail as well. So it's always recommended that you run each one by itself for doing those reconciliations. And I just realized we're almost out of time, so I want to make sure that I've covered everything. So those were just a quick touch on some different reports. Once this is done, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna open a new tab, and then we do have the Schedule 15s and 16s, which is if you have any state grants or federal grants. Those will show up in the Schedule 15 and 16. And that is dependent on, did you post those categories when you're posting receipts? And so this particular city doesn't have any expenditures for state assistance, but if you do and they're not showing up here, the important thing to remember, and I'll touch on this really quickly when you're creating your invoices. I think I have something in here. So let's just say this here is a project that we had a state grant for. And you got to make sure here that you're using the category, and this is the different grants that you would have listed here that you could select from, making sure that you select those. Probably not a right category, but I wanted to show how you can select the category. And then when you have this selected for your invoices, it will show up in those Schedule 15s and 16s. And then I'll come back to Washington. We'll review the 16. And then another one that I wanted to touch base on is the state merge. So when you are doing your transfers and you have items that are rolled up into one, because you can only report one general fund, one water fund, one sewer fund, etc. When you're posting your transfers, making sure that you always indicate in the, so if I create, let me just go back a little bit here. And we're going to create a transfer, and I just want my 597s. So if I have a transfer and I'm going to the 005 fund, so I want to select that. So delete that one. So if you have a transfer, this one is going out and this one's coming in, and we're doing $5,000. It's always important because they're going to be rolled together. Enter the word comment of state merge in this, because that's what is driving those, to know that those are going to be merged and rolled up and not reported in your annual report. So you want to make sure and have the note of state merge, and then that will show up in those reports when you're running your state exception. And you can see here that they have state keeps and that, so that's how you would want to make sure that those are entered into your transfers, and compare here in the reports. And then your Schedule 11 exceptions. This will show you all of your transfers, ins and outs, and invoices, all of those exceptions. And also in your Schedule 6, there's also one that's good to look at, and that is your netted transactions. Netted transactions are when you are writing a receipt against an expenditure number, or you are writing an invoice against a revenue number. Those are always going to show up into your netted transactions. And so those are good ones to run. And then we are about out of time, so I want to touch base a little bit on some other reports that you should be running at the end of the year. And um, it's good to always save them as a PDF. Is your account activity report. There's also one that they always ask for, is the account activity rendered for Excel in the Excel format. Your outstanding transaction directory report. That's, do you have any transactions that were posted that never got attached to either a deposit or a check? And your register, your transaction activities, save them for each transaction type. That I did touch base on that a little earlier. Your vendor activity, your revenue and expenditure reports, your outstanding check report, and remembering to use that first day of the month following the month. And then the reports that I showed you earlier in the SOA folder. See, I know I got a couple minutes left, making sure that I've touched on everything that I was thinking of. Um, Looks like I think I've covered everything that I wanted to make sure and cover. The biggest thing is, before you start your annual report, making sure that you're balanced and that the financials and the bank statements, that they balance. And if they are out of balance, then investigating with your using the transaction activity report. Here, being able to filter by the transaction type, you can see there's all kinds of transactions. And I would recommend running each one of these separately and saving them as a PDF for your year-end files. Another thing I wanted to touch base on really quick is in the fiscal setup, when you go to create your years. So I'm just going with 25 because I know I've gotten this. So December, usually if you have one or two council dates, your open period, and then having a corrections council date, and put them over here in the council dates. Don't create extra periods. Create them over here in December. So you have your open period and then your corrections. So if you're working on the annual report, you're finding that there's errors that you need to correct, storing them all in this one council date. we'll have a great place to put them all and have them readily available for your auditors when they ask for that all corrections are made in this council period when you're working on your annual report. All right, you all have a wonderful day.